Amid intensifying regional fighting, Sri Lanka's Navy and Air Force launched a joint rescue operation after the Iranian warship Iris Dana reportedly sank off the country's southern coast near the city of Gale. A Sri Lankan Navy spokesperson said the mission focused on evacuating crew members after the ship sent a distress signal claiming it had been hit. Speaking in Sri Lanka's parliament, Foreign Minister Vijitha Herath said the military dispatched naval vessels and Air Force aircraft to support the rescue. Reports indicated at least 180 people were aboard Iris Dana when the incident occurred. The vessel was said to have suffered severe damage before going under, raising concerns it may have been struck by a torpedo. Sri Lanka's Navy said it began rescue operations around 6 a.m. local time after receiving the distress call. A Navy source said 79 people were rescued and taken to hospital, including one person in critical condition. About 101 others were reported missing after the ship sank. Officials later said, one of the hospitalized survivors died. Iris Dana was described as a destroyer serving in Iran's southern fleet. The ship had recently participated in the multinational naval exercise Milan 2026, hosted in Visakhapatnam, India. Sri Lankan authorities said they would not release images of the rescue because the incident involved the military forces of another country. While no official cause was confirmed, Reuters cited reporting that the ship may have been attacked by a submarine. In Sri Lanka's parliament, an opposition lawmaker also questioned whether the vessel had been struck amid the ongoing U.S. and Israeli operations against Iran. The government had not issued a definitive response. At the same time, analysts said the United States appeared cautious because the Iran problem was proving more complex than expected. So far, Washington was said to rely primarily on airstrikes and naval firepower, with no official announcement of a ground invasion. However, when asked directly whether U.S. troops could be deployed to Iran, President Donald Trump did not rule it out, saying he would never say never and that his administration would do whatever it considered necessary. Experts argued that airstrikes alone are unlikely to permanently end Iran's nuclear program, one that Tehran repeatedly claims is peaceful. One senior analyst said it is nearly impossible to completely erase a country's nuclear capability because it can eventually be rebuilt. And if the United States were to deploy ground forces, the scale of the challenge would be enormous, whether the goal is to hit nuclear sites, dismantle missile infrastructure, or even pursue regime change. Comparisons were drawn to the U.S. invasion of Iraq in 2003. Iran is significantly larger, often described as 3 to 4 times the size of Iraq. And analysts noted that even in Iraq, the U.S. never had enough troops to fully stabilize the country. Any ground campaign in Iran, they warned, would be vastly more costly and could last far longer, with major consequences not only for Iranians, but also for U.S. forces. How long the United States can sustain high-intensity strikes, experts said, depends on 3 main factors: military resources, budget capacity, and political will. Congress could force limits on the campaign through legislation, but whether lawmakers could overcome partisan divisions remained uncertain. Another constraint is the availability of precision-guided munitions, interceptors, and other critical equipment, stockpiles that can be depleted quickly without continuous production and resupply. Meanwhile, the conflict's regional spillover intensified. UAE officials said the country had faced a surge of Iranian attacks over recent days, claiming more than 1,000 strikes within a 4-day period. They did not provide full details on damage and casualties, though earlier statements said missile and drone attacks killed at least 3 people and injured dozens while also damaging infrastructure. UAE officials said they had not changed their defensive posture, but emphasized their right to self-defense. Elsewhere in the Gulf, authorities reported air raid sirens and urged residents to remain calm and seek shelter. Journalists on the ground described explosions and interceptor activity above major cities, while officials later attributed the blasts to air defense operations responding to aerial threats. Israel, for its part, said it carried out major airstrikes in Tehran, targeting what it described as key leadership and security facilities. Israel's military claimed around 100 fighter jets, took part and dropped in more than 250 bombs, hitting locations it listed as the Iranian Presidential Office area, the Supreme National Security Council facility, meeting sites used by senior officials, and a military officer training facility. Israel described the broader area as one of the most heavily protected complexes in Iran, central to national decision-making, including discussions tied to nuclear policy and military planning. On the U.S. side, Defense Department officials acknowledged that while American air defenses intercepted most incoming threats, some attacks still got through. One U.S. defense briefing referenced a case where a powerful Iranian weapon penetrated defenses and struck a U.S. tactical operations center, reinforcing the message that even advanced air defense networks can be overwhelmed or occasionally breached. That reality feeds into what many analysts described as a war of attrition. Iran has deployed large volumes of drones and missiles across the region, pressuring U.S. and allied defensive systems from Bahrain to the UAE. The conflict is also shaped by cost imbalance. Relatively inexpensive drones can force defenders to expend very costly interceptors. Analysts warned that the outcome could depend on which side depletes its stocks first: attackers running out of drones and missiles, or defenders running out of interceptors and political patience. Some reports highlighted concerns that certain regional interceptor inventories could be exhausted within days under sustained attack rates, prompting quiet calls to end the conflict sooner rather than later. Another major thread in the reporting focused on intelligence operations inside Iran. One account, citing sources familiar with the matter, claimed that large parts of Tehran's traffic camera network had been compromised for years, with encrypted feeds allegedly routed to external servers. The same reporting suggested that combined surveillance, signals intelligence, human sources, and algorithmic analysis helped map security routines and identify patterns of movement, what was described as a daily life model used to locate high-value targets. The report further alleged that operatives interfered with mobile communications near sensitive locations ahead of strikes, disrupting warnings and coordination among security teams. The broader point was that modern targeting is increasingly driven by deep, long-term intelligence penetration paired with automated data processing rather than only traditional on-the-ground surveillance. Finally, commentary turned to the historical irony behind today's nuclear crisis. Some analysts noted that parts of Iran's nuclear infrastructure trace back to U.S. assistance decades ago, including a research reactor provided in the late 1960s under the Atoms for Peace framework, an initiative launched during the Cold War to promote civilian nuclear development among U.S. partners. Critics argued that the present confrontation reflects how past strategic choices can echo forward for generations. Today, with U.S.-Iran tensions already high and diplomacy stalled, the conflict has escalated into a high-intensity campaign. President Trump has framed the operation as an effort to destroy missile launch capacity, flatten Iran's missile industry, and prevent Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons, claims Tehran continues to reject, insisting it is not seeking a bomb. That leaves the region facing a volatile mix: major strikes, escalating retaliation, maritime incidents like the sinking of Iris Dana, strained air defenses, pressure on ammunition stockpiles, and intelligence-driven targeting, conditions that raise the risk of further escalation and a broader regional war.